Yo, what's up everybody? It's Brendan from Modern to Me, and today we're going to be talking about, actually we're going back to loops. You probably saw loop in the title, or maybe you just saw for and thought for loop. Well, it's actually pretty similar to a for loop, what we are learning today. So let's say we have this array list of integers still, and we want to be able to cycle through all of its values. So let's just add some values to it real quick. I already have them all ready, so we just add the numbers 1 through 6 real quick. And we want to be able to cycle through these just to, I don't know, for whatever reason you need to access all of the elements in your array list. So the way we learned before was the classic for loop. You have the variable definition, then the condition. So we'd go less than int.size, and then the increment, so just I++. Okay, and this would work. We can really do whatever we want in here. If we were to print out system.out.println ints dot, then we would want to go down to the method where you get your element, which is get, and then type I. And this would print out all of our elements for us. So, you know, perfect, exactly what we want. And now, there's another way you can accomplish this sort of task, and it actually starts the same way. You type for, but instead of doing all that mumbo jumbo with the classic for loop, it works a little bit differently. So what you do is you type the kind of class that you'll be cycling through. So we're doing integers, and this is just like array lists. It can't be a primitive type. You have to go a actual class. So type integer, and then we'll just call it int, and then, oops, I can't call it int, my bad. We'll just call it num. Then you type colon, and then you type the name of your array list. So you type ints. Okay, now I'm not just going to blast through this. Let me kind of explain what this is saying here. So you could kind of translate this in English to, for every integer in the ints array, we're going to cycle through it. That's all it's really saying. So it's going to say, for this integer we're going to create, this temporary integer called number, for every one that is in this array list class, we are going to cycle through it. So this is going to accomplish the same task. It's going to cycle through the ints array list, but instead of using an index like we do for classic for loops where you have this I and you have to do ints.getI, what it does is it directly passes what is in the current index of the array list into this integer num. So that's what this does. This is going to be what you reference in this for loop. That's going to contain the most up-to-date cycle, the most up-to-date element in your array list. So if we were just to go, let me show you how this would work. If we were to do system.out.println, and then we type num in here, if we run this, we see that both times we get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So these both accomplish the same task. This initial for loop, this the classic way, I guess you could say, does it the more hardcore approach, not the hardcore approach, but you kind of know what I'm saying. It uses primitive data types, and you directly access the index, and you actually have more power, because here you are just using the integer, or not the integer, you're just using the referenced type, and so you're just directly accessing what the variable is equal to. Okay, so it sounds pretty simple, right? But there's actually quite a few catches that I need to make sure you're aware of before you start running off wild with your enhanced for loop. That's what this is called. If I didn't say that yet, this is the enhanced for loop. I don't really know if this has a name. I just call it the classic for loop or whatever. But so in here, let's say you want to somehow access the index of the current variable you're working with. Well, you can't. You're not working with the for int I. And now let's try something. If we were to try to print out system.out.println and print out, and we got ints.index of, and if we type num and go in here and, oops, I missed a dot. There we go. And if we run this, well, what do we get? We get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, the classic for loop, then 1, 0, 2, 1, 3, 2, 4, 3, 5, 4, 6, 5. So you're probably thinking, cool, that works, right? Like I can get the index of the number I'm working with, right? Well, yes, you could, but a lot of times when you're cycling through this, once you get the index, there's nothing you can do with the index. And let me show you why. So what happens when you try to use the index is if you try to reference specifically from the array list, if you start messing with the array list in here, like let's say you wanted to do inst dot say add, and you want to replace the current index, so you do like this. Let me show you. So you come up with this really creative idea of where you are trying to replace the current element, so you use this enhanced for loop. You're really proud that you just learned it at Modern to Me, and so you use this method that you learned in a recent tutorial, and you want to replace it with like 99. Well, let's think about what's happening here. So let's say you're replacing the element at like index 2, and all of a sudden you start changing all of these elements, and you start adding and removing and cutting things out of your array list. Essentially, the computer freaks out. It has no idea what to do, and it really does not go well. So essentially, you can't change too much of what's going on in your array list if you use this enhanced for loop. This enhanced for loop is very, very useful, don't get me wrong. Some things I do encourage you to do in enhanced for loops, if you need to print out the elements or access methods, is really, really a very key usage of enhanced for loops. If you want to call a method on each num, so if you want to go like num, numbers are a bad example, I don't know. Yeah, there's really no methods I can use for num, but if you had your own class and you wanted to call a method on every instance of the class in your array list, enhanced for loops would be a great way to do this. But trying to actually change the actual array list, that's a big no-no. You really don't want to do that. So many different things can happen. You'll get really frustrated with all of the bugs, so just don't do it. So just use it for very basic printing, accessing methods. Really, that's all I encourage you to do. Otherwise, use the primitive for loop. It's not going to kill you. It'll get the job done either way. So I appreciate you watching my tutorial, and next tutorial you're going to join me for a coding exercise. I'll see you guys there.